Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, May 5. Greetings and welcome to my daily reflection. Yesterday was, of course, Star Wars. May the 4th be with you. And you, of course, will answer, and also with you. But late yesterday afternoon, I was reminded of something else about May 4th. It was the 50th anniversary of the Kent State Massacre, when Ohio National Guard troops killed 4 Kent State students and wounded 9 others. I was in high school at the time, and I don't remember much about the shooting. It didn't seem to impact my life at all. It wasn't until the ELCA held one of their global mission events at Kent State sometime in the 90s that I had a recollection and a real occurrence of those events. However, the 1970s were a tumultuous time for many of us. The Vietnam War was in full swing, and there were daily protests about one aspect of the war or another. The students at Kent State were protesting the bombing that was occurring in Cambodia at the time. Other college students were protesting other aspects of the war. Homes were divided over the issue. Church youth groups were divided between hawks and doves. We were on edge. Once again, an anniversary passed, and I had no foreknowledge of it even being on the calendar. No, my focus has been on other events of the 1970s, 50 years ago, half a century. At times it seems so long ago, and at other moments it seems like it was only yesterday. Because it was in November 1970 that another event took place that shook the establishment. At the chapel of the University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland, Reverend Paul Orsi, president of the Maryland Synod of the Lutheran Church in America, put his hands on top of candidate Elizabeth Pulse and offered the following words: "The Lord bestow upon thee the Holy Ghost for the office and work of a minister in the Church of God," thus announcing the first woman ordained in the Lutheran tradition in the United States. A month later, December 1970, Barbara Andrews was ordained by the American Lutheran Church, 2 of the 3 predecessors of the ELCA. 50 years of women serving as pastors. Half a century seems like just yesterday, and also a lifetime ago. For many, it's the norm. We've known female pastors for as long as we've known male pastors. No big deal, you say? Yet for others, it is a big deal. Sometimes for all the wrong reasons, I feel. Pastor Pulse was interviewed shortly after her ordination, and she was asked if this was a moment for the women's liberation. She responded, quote, "If a person, a man or a woman, is well qualified, then ordination should be granted." She said, adding that her new role would enable her to have a fuller ministry. This fellow graduate of Gettysburg Lutheran Seminary didn't bite on that liberation bait, rather on the qualifications of an individual. I do know that the LCA, the church body I grew up in, had a long battle over whether or not women could be qualified to be ordained. Congregations were divided. Homes were divided. Even some youth groups who were privy to the discussion, to the debate, were split as well. Tradition ran strong in the church. Women's place was not in the pulpit. Well, that's okay, because most of the women pastors I know preach from outside of the pulpit. A little humor. But it is a story of a change, a reality of new life. 50 years, and we're still debating it of sorts. One of my classmates at seminary had a most difficult time in her first parish. She was the victim of harassment and belittlement. She left the ministry after only a few years. When I learned of it years later, I was hurt. See, I had known her. She was a quiet, introverted person, liked to be by herself. But she had incredible depth. We were partnered together in a counseling class, and her insight on resolving personal issues was absolutely superb. Her sermons in our preaching class were outstanding. As I thought about it then and think about it now, the church at large lost a great deal with her departure. The way she was treated, as I heard it, was not fair or just, and no one seemed to come to her aid. I wish I had known what was happening to her, and I pray that I would have stood with and by her. Unfortunately, it was not an isolated event. I watched a video produced about a year ago by another synod in the ELCA, and the comments made by clergy and lay members of congregations about their pastor, who happened to be female, were absolutely repulsive to me. I remembered something like this. What should we call you, dear? How about pastor? What are we supposed to do when you have children? And after all, you are going to have children, aren't you? I wondered if they would ever ask that of a male pastor. And have they never thought about offering maternity and paternity leave to pastors when they have families? And if not, why not? The sexism that goes on. So frustrating. Yet here we are 50 years later, after Pastor Elizabeth Pulse was set aside for word and sacrament ministry, still working and wanting to celebrate the ministry of all well-qualified people. Our own Bishop Elizabeth Eaton, the first woman elected to the position of bishop in a presiding body within our community. A first. Well-qualified people serving regardless of sex, gender, or identification. The ELCA had set aside 2020 as a time to celebrate and lift up this milestone anniversary, as well as the 40 years of ordination of women of color and the 10 years of ordination of LGBTQ. I wanted to mark this time as well in worship, and later we will. But right now, since we're isolated at home, it'll be in a daily reflection. When we gather back, I hope to share with you some other stories of the ordination rites. I wanted to have these important steps in our collective journey as a church together. The 1970s, in some sense, are alive today, filled with the debates, the wonders, the questions, the time of tumult as we come to new understandings, the time of homes, congregation, youth groups, adult groups being divided is nothing new. Shepherd of the Hills will face that too in the not too long future as you question who your next pastor will be. I pray that you will be open to people who are well qualified and not see anything but qualifications. It's been going on, this division, for more than 50 years, and I hope in this community of faith it will not be a problem. Hey, I do look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And thanks for all the 400 plus people who showed up for worship last week. It's incredible. As somebody has asked, what will we do in the near future when we're able to worship together in person? Will we still videotape and project? Will we still broadcast? And I think my answer is, we'll wait and see what new things God will do with all of us when we're back together and how that will look. But until then, and things are opening now, but I suspect worship will not return this month at least. Until we come back together, please, please keep the distance. Physical distance is important. Stay home, of course, if you're sick. Wash your hands 20 seconds at a time in warm water a couple of times a day, please. Love one another. That's most important. Listen to one another. And as Sergeant Esterhaus would say as he dismisses the troops in Hill Street Blues, be careful out there.